Eric? Hello, Renee?
Hello.
Hey. Hello.
Hi, Rich. Are you muted? I do that too. You're muted.
Rich is muted.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
So what's going on, everybody?
Now
I
everybody-
gotta get my book.
Richie, look at that. That's so cool.
nice.
Oh, where's Richie going?
The man cave. The man den. Oh, there goes Caesar.
How you doing, Renee?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. Real good.
Nice. Is that in your basement? Where are you?
Yeah, I'm in my basement.
That's what I thought. I saw you on that. Are those people local? Those gotta be, right?
Yeah, they broadcast from South Buffalo.
Okay. That's what I figured
That's
they were.
the Think So Joe show.
Yeah.
Yeah, they broadcast from South Buffalo. I think Eric's out there too. Eric is in Bighorn Sheep, and I think he's is he muted? Can you hear us,
No,
Eric?
I don't think I'm muted.
Oh, there
Eric's
you
not
are. Eric.
muted.
Okay.
We just
No,
can't see him.
No video.
I don't have video.
No video.
No video.
What are you trying to hide, Eric?
Oh, do you have your thing closed like I do?
There you go.
There you are.
Oh, there we go. Cool,
Hey.
Eric. Nice.
How's it going?
Rich, do you know Eric? Eric, do you know Rich and Renee?
Yeah.
Can you come over, Eric?
Yeah, I've been over there.
Yeah.
So Renee, Eric is in Bighorn Sheep, and I think he went over to jam with you guys a couple times for Dots on Moon.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jared and I went over there.
Nice.
What do you play, Eric?
Drums and guitar.
I thought so. You should come over again. We need a drummer.
Everybody else in my band's in 3 other bands.
That's what I was
Yeah,
gonna say. It's probably
everyone's doing it, Eric.
5 minutes, right?
Actually, what I need to do is just set it up so if someone doesn't have the time, if they were willing to just come over and play drums once and let me record it so I could add a little something more than just the samples, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you would be there, like even if you weren't there.
You'd be there.
At
And-
every show, at every single show, you know, because, you know, we're just like touring. And it's just
The press of
going-
a button, he'd be there. Hit of a pedal, right?
You just click a button. Eric's back.
Yes.
I know he's back.
We'd even name your track Eric's track.
That would be convenient.
Oh, isn't there a
Yeah.
song named Eric's Trip? Isn't it by like Sonic Youth or something?
Eric's Trip is a Sonic Youth song. Yes, it is.
Yeah, yes it is. Angel, you always look so tall when we have video.
I look so tall. Why?
He's doing the worm's eye view. That's
I
why.
used to look
He's
up
got the phone on the floor.
Yeah.
It's a power move, you know? When you talk to people, you want to be looking down at them. It's
Yes,
a power move.
you do that stature.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, just when I thought this book was getting better because they stopped talking about the Strokes.
Right?
What's the name of this chapter? The Southern Strokes.
Oh, yeah. It took me a little bit to figure out who they were.
This book is like obsessed with everything. Like it's as if the Strokes were like the seed, and every band spawned from their sound.
Well, they're
Yeah,
her
it's-
good friends, though, right? I mean, that's what I took it as, or no?
Yeah, but they don't sound like them. I
Oh
mean,
no.
but it's like, oh yeah, we kind of sound a little bit like the Strokes. Oh, thank you, guy from Interpol. I don't think so. And then they're like Franz Ferdinand. Yeah, we wanted to sound like the Strokes. No, I don't think you.
No.
I don't know. Whatever.
All the British bands got really short. They got really like just like a page, like just a couple of quotes, you know? They didn't mention any of their music. They just mentioned that they were there and then they were inspired and apparently they just wandered off.
Well, they did give Franz Ferdinand a pretty decent chunk. I mean, they did like interview the singer and stuff like that. I don't know if anybody else gets interviewed. I'm getting to that point where I don't think there's any more new characters to introduce. Well, no, I still haven't gotten to the National really. I don't know.
I'm just getting into the part of the yeahs. So I got a little break from the Strokes bullshit.
There was a lot of Strokes. There was a lot of Strokes. I mean,
You know,
what's the general consensus about the Strokes music in general?
You want somebody else want to go first?
I've never liked them. I
I've
can't
tried to
stand it.
listen to them. I just, other than that song last night, I don't even know why I like that. There's just, I put on that album, so the first one, so many times. I'm like, I just turn it off.
There was actually a song when I was driving after work today on the radio. I'm like, oh, it's a Stroke song. I'll give it a shot because I've been reading about them for a week.
And they're amazing.
I can't do it. Just turn it off.
Renee?
I liked when it first came out, like way, way, way back. That had to be the 90s, late 90s, right?
2000.
Just because it didn't sound like anything else, but after, it just sounds whiny after a while and just, like his voice just, that pitch
Oh,
of
really?
his
I thought
voice.
his voice sounded too like, listener, I see. I don't know. I just,
But it's
He has-
higher
he
than
has-
that, but it does, it drones. It just drones. I don't like it.
It's not
Yeah.
the most melodic voice, and he sounds pretty hammered when he's singing. You know?
It probably is.
and you know, and I get the idea of like Velvet Underground. They don't sound like television, but I get the idea of them bringing up Velvet Underground and television. But you know, when I hear a Velvet Underground song, I'm always like, I can't believe. Like every time, I'm like, if I don't hear them for a while, I can't believe how good this sounds when there's nothing really seems to be going on. Like it's just there's something bizarre about the Velvet Underground where it's just like, why does this sound so good for me?
Yeah, I agree. The parts are bigger than the sum of the parts. You know? I mean,
Yeah.
it's really good. Yeah,
And all good parts, yep.
The Strokes for me are like they're funny. I mean, I got into them because when they first came out, like I remember the Spin article, the Rolling Stone, they were like selling them hard, you know, before they came out. So I checked them out, and they were okay for the time, you know.
But that's a fascinating thing. When you read this, you realize why they were.
Yeah, exactly.
Like everybody, they were all friends. That's where the publishing industry is.
Right.
You know, does anybody still, or has anybody ever had Sirius FM, Sirius XM, or whatever?
No, I never had.
Yeah, I was listening to it today. That's where I heard the Strokes.
Did you? I didn't realize that. You know, did you ever listen to? I think Jenny Elliscule is like the best DJ on whatever station she's on.
She's on Nick the Alternative or the old school shows.
Yeah, she's in here like a ton of times. Like she
Yeah.
was part, yeah. And I didn't realize she was part of that scene. And what?
I didn't either.
Yeah.
And Alan Light too.
Yep. It was really. But you know what? I wonder if it's kind of like I remember the first time I saw Interpol. We went to Cornell. I don't think there was 100 people in the room. When they came out, the way a few people reacted, I was wondering if they even knew those few people or just slept with Carlos. And and it just blew you away. It was like, whoa, my goodness. Now the second time I saw him, and the third time I was like, ugh. But that first time I saw him, maybe the Strokes just had that effect on people, and you know. And then when they listened to the album, it didn't matter what the album sounded like because you had these amazing memories of seeing them live. And, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know. But
Did you get to the point where they talked about they were being recorded by the guy from recorded Radiohead?
wait, oh, we got a new member here. Did you?
Yeah, somebody just joined us. Who just joined us? They're on iPad. Want to say hi? We're all here.
Hi. Hi.
Hi.
Oh.
I'm Richard.
Hi, I'm Barbara.
Hi, Barbara.
Barbara, how are you? Hey, Barbara, how are you?
Hey, Barbara, Renee.
I'm well, thank you. And there's someone else too. Hi.
Hello.
Then there's Renee up top, and then there's also Eric. Eric is in Bighorn Sheep. Renee is Richard's sister, his brother.
Well, I don't know if you
and
define
then-
her like that.
No, she's her own person, 100%. Richard is her brother.
Yeah.
I meant
We
to
had
say.
that conversation again.
There we go.
And we're all here talking about the book. So,
What were you gonna say
we're-
about-
you know, I just wanted to kick this off to see how it started. I tried the Zoom meeting. So there's a couple of outside people that I know wanted to join, and they're not on Facebook. They're anti-Facebookers, like Bradley and my buddy out in LA and stuff. So Andy. So I figured I'd make it a Zoom meeting, so it's a little more convenient for them. So if you have any friends who want to join us and don't like Facebook, shouldn't be Facebook limiting. So that was kind of the idea here. So,
What were you gonna say about the guy that recorded them?
what's that?
What were you gonna say?
Oh,
about
okay,
the-
so is it Brendan O'Brien is the guy who recorded Radiohead, and he was talking about recording their second album. And like one thing you can say about Radiohead, at least they're clear. At least you can hear every instrument. And he was complaining that that apparently the lead singer for the Strokes was so concerned about like the sound of the hi-hat. It would take like a week to record the hi-hat, and I just can't hear it on those albums. Everything's like buried and muffled. It sounds like it was recorded like 2 rooms away. I was just shocked that was like a planned sound. I thought it was an accident.
I do appreciate the fact though that, there was no like thing about some kind of image where we have to hide the fact that my dad owns a modeling agency or that my dad gave us a credit card and helped us out. I really did appreciate that part. It was just like, and I didn't realize, how much money the guy from LCD had behind him with Plant Records or whatever.
Yeah,
label that-
DFA Records or whatever. it
DFA,
became.
thank you.
Yeah. I was shocked by that too, because they kind of came out of nowhere too with a ton of money, and he talks about that. He had like a $500,000 recording deal. I was
Yeah.
really shocked by that. That surprised me.
And he was 30. I mean, usually that's like you have to give up by the time you're 30. He started when he was 30.
Yeah, just like us, Richie.
Yeah.
Look at us now.
We're in a book club.
Woohoo! They have the world, and we have a book club.
Surprised that you were dealing with such an ugly mess. And now,
So,
when you said you hired somebody, did you hire a contractor?
oh, okay. I thought there was somebody, adding in. But it's so yeah, like the yeah-yeahs, like that was interesting because they didn't quite have the cash behind them. And then what else was it? There was Fisher Spooner.
Yeah.
That was an education. Wow, I mean, doing that show in the middle of a Starbucks.
Yeah. You see the picture of it?
Yeah.
It looked like an eco show. Yeah, I didn't know any of the history. Did you know that? Did you guys know that? I didn't know any of that.
Any about any of this? Did anyone?
I didn't. I mean, I always heard the rumors of the Strokes being having some money behind them, but none of the details.
But you know what? You can say, they can have all the money in the world, but that can't buy fans. So I mean, someone obviously outside of New York City really, really loves them. I mean, it's that first album came out and it was everywhere. So more power to them. But then again, I get that because the way I feel about them is how I've heard people complain about LCD sound system.
Right?
Like I like them, but I get how people are like, they don't like how he sings or say he can't sing, or maybe they can't quite hear all the percussion and stuff that's going on, especially after seeing the movie where they were retiring.
Oh, right. Yeah. The Madison Square Garden show. Yeah.
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 That had a guy from Pitchfork singing backup, in the
I'll help you get a good review.
yeah. Can I sing backup in MSG?
He's not going to say that was a bad song.
Yeah. It's probably the best song they ever had.
Probably. I remember when that album, what is it? Not the Liars, the band that they produced first.
TV on the
sounds like
radio?
Which one?
TV
The one
on
that
the
sounds
radio?
like
TV on the radio?
no, not TV on the radio. No, the other one that sounds like Public Image Limited, with
Rapture?
House of Jealous Lovers.
Rapture.
Rapture. Yeah. Yeah, they were a pretty cool story, but he pretty much just took over the band and then took their sound and then like just wandered off with it,
It was interesting too, just to kind of know about this time period. And the thing is too, I mean, the way they felt about that time in those 10 years, it's probably the way we put, the New York City Velvet Underground era in the 70s with television on a pedestal. There's probably people that, read about that and were like, oh man, 20 years before that, we had the Monks or we had this.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. I mean, did anybody go down to the city? Was anybody in the city or living down in the city that time? I mean, by that time I was living up in Buffalo. I didn't really get down in New York that much. I didn't really, I mean, I was reading about the scene, but I didn't really get down there. Were any of you able to get down there at all during this period to compare? I mean, did it seem realistic what she was portraying?
So Angel, if I could pipe in here,
Yeah, definitely.
I invited my friend Eller James Moose Bowles into the group, and I'm not sure why he might not be here tonight. He might be playing. But he was living there at that time, and he was living with Lou Reed.
Oh,
And
wow, cool.
yeah, so he played with David Bowie because Lou Reed was too sick one night to play. And he was hanging with Lou Reed, and he was playing with someone else. I can't remember who it was, but he played with a bunch of people. And he's a real humble guy, a very cool guy. Splits his time between Utica, New York, and Big Pine Key.
Oh, wow.
So he's but I think he's in Florida right now. He's not been super well lately, but they were gonna have a reunion show in New York at I guess the site of the old CBGB. I don't know if that's still there, but what's his name? Bowie died the night before that happened, and so
Oh, wow.
got canceled. That was just obviously a couple years ago. But I think I'd love to have him in the group, and he probably forgot about this going on. He's got so many directions that he's pulled in. But at some point, because you're a fellow musician, I'd encourage you to reach out to him to get some personal stories because he loves to
Sure.
share that stuff.
Oh,
And
cool.
he's got pictures and personal accounts, but also other people's anecdotes. So it's pretty
Right.
wonderful to have in the group. I think you'll enjoy him a lot.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I'll reach out to him, see if we can get him
Right
involved.
on. So, I mean, and I'd
We'll talk
invite
about the
anybody.
Lou Reed show. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd invite anybody in the group to friend him on Facebook. His first name is Ellard, and then it's James Moose is the name most people go by, and the last name is spelled Boles. He's a really nice guy though, and probably has a few friend spots open.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you down in the city at all during that time? During the early 2000s or?
Well, I was there actually in 2000. And I haven't unfortunately been able to get up with the book. I had a stroke in June and I'm having visual problems. Got to get to where I can get an audiobook or something. So is what it is. But my brother did an art show in Long Island City in 2000. So I was in the area, but I wasn't like in any clubs or doing that.
Oh,
It was
okay.
like daytime art events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I wish we could have got I don't know how much of it she read, but Circe, whatever she goes by now, she was there, and I think her husband John Biondo was there too.
Mm.
Yeah, I was trying to get Jason involved because I know Jason lived down in New York back then. He was living in Brooklyn in the 2000s, and he says he saw them down at Arlene's Grocery, where I know you played, Ricky.
Yeah, I guess Carlos was quite a fixture down
At
there.
Arlene's basement. Or Arlene's
No, just
Grocery?
I mean in Buffalo or in New York City in general. I mean, Carlos was known.
Didn't Carlos do like a DJ set after playing in the town ballroom here?
Really?
Buffalo. Yeah. It was like I don't know, 2007 or 8 or something like that. Before he left the band. When did he leave? Like 2000, around that time period.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think that show might have been at what's the place that has the it's in Niagara Falls. It's got the steps.
Oh, yeah.
The Rapids Theater?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I think that might have been the last time you played with them, and then the Buffalo show. I think he was out. I think.
Yeah.
Oh,
I saw them with the Rapture with Kurosa when they played up in Toronto in 2003 or 2 or something like that. They mentioned in the book, and but it was funny because Interpol sounded so different than they do on the album because they were playing with like Gibson guitars and Marshall half stacks and stuff, and it was like so loud and so crunchy. It didn't sound anything like the album. I was like, I had to go back and play the album. I couldn't believe they were the same songs. It was really weird. I've been looking for like a YouTube of it or something because it blew me away how different it sounded, and his voice sounded different.
Yeah, his voice was very different.
Yeah.
It's almost like the difference between Warsaw and Joy Division.
yeah. He definitely changed it. It was kind of weird. So
It's a weird question, but can you define crunchy from an audio standpoint? As a musician,
You know,
like, because I'm a non-musician, I'm a listener, but define crunchy.
well, when I think crunchy, like more metal, more heavy metal sounding, you know, that kind of
Okay.
pounding, you know, Black
Okay,
Sabbath.
I'm
crunch.
sorry to be stupid, but I was just like crunchy.
No,
what
no,
is-
no. Yeah.
Okay.
I was thinking like unfinished. I didn't know if that was what you meant, or like not produced, like overly produced, but you mean
No,
more like,
definitely not overly produced. When it was raw. It was real raw live. You know, in a way, the album's like it sounds so produced in the album. It sounded different, especially opening for the Cure. They were the band before the Cure, so it was like I don't know if they were just amped up and really excited and they're just playing a little differently and stuff, but they didn't seem like, you know, it seems a little shoegaze here, a little like, you know, they're more introspective on the album than they did live. I mean, live they were really trying to go for it. You know, it was weird. So
Because now they sound identical to the album when they play.
right.
I think it was tough on the band to lose Carlos too, because you know he was like their Peter Hook. He was the one moving around and jumping around. What about you, Eric?
What about?
What anything you got out of the book?
I guess I haven't gotten very far. I just got it a little bit ago, so I'm almost halfway through.
Uh-huh.
All right, cool. Well, we'll pick it up at the next meeting too. I figured a lot of people started late. I know a lot of people were just getting the book, so I figured we'd have one meeting, kind of kick it off, and the next meeting we can kind of wrap it up and pick the next book. So we're going to read. My favorite part of the book is anytime Mark Spitz jumps up because he had
Yes.
the funniest quotes, you know, and he is a great writer for Spin, and I got a bunch of his books, and whenever he jumped up, he always had some sort of comment that kind of summarized the time period, you know.
yeah, I noticed his are simple and straightforward. Like whereas people are going on about something, then his is just a line.
Yeah, it's just cut
Okay.
and dry.
Yeah.
My favorite one I posted on the page, you know, he says, you're talking about music at the time, and they spent a lot of time. What was that first band?
Oh my gosh, Johnny
never
Eat
heard
Fire,
of it.
Jimmy Eat
Oh,
Fire.
Fire Gear,
Fire
yeah.
Gear?
Oh,
Yeah,
Did any of you ever see them or anything? Because they talk about them like they're the second coming, but I looked them up and it looked like kind of like
I listened to him. I was not impressed.
okay.
I saw a video. It was very continental-esque. Just
Yeah,
Just
Yeah,
because
I
this
know.
singer just stares out there into the audience like he's staring through everybody. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just sounds a little weird.
Sounds like
yeah,
John.
that was a weird way to start the book because I had never really heard of them before. I mean, I kind of heard the name, I guess, but they became the Watchmen, were actually a pretty good band, but I never heard of Jonathan Fireeater. And you're right, they did sound like a continental band, you know. They didn't strike me as that big a band, but I guess what they said they signed for like $500,000 or something ridiculous, and then before they devolved in a typical rock star heroin spiral, you know.
Yeah,
that
and
they-
he passed away not a couple of years ago or so.
And
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Richie said. Yeah. But anyways, quote. I love his quote. He talks about the Dave Matthews Band. He says, "This is Mark Spitz. It's always going to be a Dave Matthews Band. You can't even criticize them. They're just better. It's like criticizing. You can't get rid of them. I hope they don't shit on you. The bottom line is money, and we needed rock stars. And that was like the intro to the Strokes. You know." And the late '90s was a pretty grim period for music. I know that's not Richie's favorite period. I can tell you that much.
I like the British bands, you know. But yeah, and then I thought I liked all the trip hop stuff, but then I realized I just like the greatest hits. I think.
But even the British bands are kind of petering out by 98, 99 and stuff, you know. I mean, it was getting kind of grim period, you know. Yeah, rock music wise, you know.
Well, the book claims that's because you know, the ecstasy dance thing was so big, and that's hard. You know, they were trying to find a way to sell that. What was that band that had the little crab on the cover?
The Prodigy.
I mean, that's what they were trying to find, is a band that they could sell. It's how can you sell, you know, a half an hour song where you've got to be in ecstasy to really get into it for the radio.
It's not music you can crank up in your car, you know, driving on the road on ecstasy, and you'll pull over and start hugging people, you know.
Cut me off. Oh man, come here. Give me a hug. I'm sorry. Bring it in here.
Bring it in here, come on. Only if you
Drive
turn off the-
together. Where are you going? I'll give you a ride. I like the Mark Spitz quote where he's like, I got up and I had breakfast, which was usually a few lines of Coke and amphetamine and a cigarette and then a donut. And then I went over to like the guy's house.
Yeah.
Breakfast of Champions.
Yeah. it's worth reading when you get to the part, you know, I know Ryan Adams got slammed pretty bad recently in the press, but when you read that section about him with the heroin and Alberto, he doesn't look too good of a, I don't know, you know, and I'm not confusing fine about the music and listening to it, but he doesn't seem like that great of a guy.
Ryan Adams?
Yeah, it seemed like he was really all,
He was
getting,
married to Mandy Moore for a while there, and he was not very kind to her. I mean,
that's what they said, and then his
yeah.
heroin addiction and getting that spread to the guy from the Strokes. I don't know.
Wasn't he the guy who flipped out in the concert when someone thought he was Brian Adams? Is that the same artist?
Yeah, it's the same guy. Yeah.
All right, yeah.
If people cried out for Ryan Adams, he'd snap out on you. Yeah, I like Ryan Adams' music. You know, if you're into that alternative country sound, I like his Whiskey Town albums and stuff. It's an acquired taste. People either like it or don't, and I get that. But they were really well produced. They were really well done, and he had that kind of sound. So he came to Buffalo in I think 2004 or 5, and in that time period they're talking about, and that was possibly one of the worst shows I ever attended in Buffalo. He absolutely horrendous. And he came out with a brand new band, the Cardinals, and everyone was expecting like Whiskey Town or Ryan Adams, whatever. He came out with a brand new band, brand new set, and all of it sounded like Grateful Dead outtakes, you know, like just like real long meandering jams, and it was just like not anything anybody expected, like and not like the good way.
That's weird.
It was like people were booing them or shit. People were walking out of the show in the town ballroom too. People were just walking out, just like really upset. It was pretty and I think that was that same period where they had the intervention with him with the Strokes and stuff. So you know, I think he was talented, but I think he let his demons get to him in a bad way. And also they were saying like, you know, he came to New York to become like New York, you know, so he could have that New York cred. Like that's what he wanted, you know. And so he was seeking those dark vibes, and that's, you know, just took him down this weird path, you know. And then he went into the arms of Mandy Moore, I guess. I don't know how that happens. Heroin and Mandy Moore.
I don't know what she saw in him. Yeah, that's.
You know?
He's likely a couple, Mandy Moore and heroin just don't really.
Yeah.
I don't think that was her thing.
Yeah, you don't usually associate those two things, you know, Mandy Moore and heroin. You know, it's kind of
No, I would have thought Lindsay Lohan maybe, you know.
Right.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So the first time I was in New York City was in the early 90s, and it didn't even seem like that, you know, compared to what I grew up with, you know, like Fort Apache, the Bronx and stuff like that. Angel, you were there. Like, I mean, were the 90s, it's, you know, was it cleaning up by then? The book makes it sound like the 90s were as bad as the 70s.
No. The city changed a lot. So, like, when I graduated high school in '86, it was still pretty skeevy down there. So you'd go down to like Times Square, 42nd Street, or go down to like, you know, even the Village back then, even like, you know, Greenwich Village, going down through Washington Square Park. I mean, I think they make a joke about it in the book, but you know, you go through there and everybody, you know, you could buy a dime bag off of anybody. There'd be people selling drugs everywhere and stuff like that. And then I went to college. And you know, a couple of years later, I'm graduating in '94, and I remember I went down to go see UMass was playing a basketball game in Madison Square Garden. So I went into the city and got there early, kicked around Times Square, and I remember where there used to be like a 3-story sex shop was a Disney store. And that was in '94. And that was, and then even more shocking than the Disney store, the part that I stopped and really shocked me was that there was a guy on the street changing the garbage bags and the cans on the street. And I never seen like a fresh garbage bag in a garbage can in New York City till 1994. And I was like, no way, Times Square is changing, you know?
Yeah.
And it really cleaned up. It was Times Square was cleaning up, and it worked its way through the city. By the late '90s, I would say it was pretty nice. It was getting nice. I mean, the Times Square riots had already happened in the East Village, and they were cleaning up Alphabet City. Sure, there were still drug dealers and stuff like that, but it was getting way cleaned up. I think.
Yeah, my brother was living in New York in like the 90s, and he was driving a cab, and he was working as a paralegal, and he was living in Spanish Harlem. And it wasn't like he wanted to have his girlfriend live in there, because it was still a little sketchy, but it wasn't like in the 70s where white boy couldn't have even lived there, you know? So I don't know. I think the 90s were a lot cleaned up compared to the 70s. 70s were a little rough. I was like 10 years old when I went there in '75, and trade towers weren't quite built yet. So the highest thing there was the Empire State Building. That was a little weird. It
Yeah,
was pretty
I mean,
seedy. It was pretty seedy then, though.
Yeah,
Oh,
there
yeah.
was a documentary on YouTube of the 70s, and people are just walking over a dead body. Couldn't get
Well,
someone-
dude, I was a little kid and I was walking over people on the sidewalk asking Daddy, why is the man sleeping on the sidewalk? And it's funny because my dad, who's been dead for like 20 years now, but he put his wallet in my sock. I was 10 years old and we were walking like by Central Park, not through it, but by it. And there were a lot of homeless people and a lot of them were old men. They were obviously drunks, but as a 10-year-old, like that was pretty shocking. I hadn't seen that in Buffalo. You know, you don't, there were homeless here, but not so present on the street. So that was shocking. I didn't see much of that like in 2000 when I went, but it was also during the summer. So it's like in Europe, there's a lot of people that just aren't there during the summer, you know? So
Yeah, so it just makes you wonder about the bands making such a big deal about, and I'm, it's so shit, we could do this or that. I'm like, maybe that you're seeing that through 19-year-old eyes or something,
maybe, I
they
mean,
were at the
I've
tail
heard,
end of it.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, I've heard a lot of my musician friends who do travel say that like it's really hard to get gigs in Buffalo just because there are so many talented people vying for relatively few gigs. Whereas in New York, there might be 10 times as many great talented musicians, but like 50 times the gigs.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of people that might be by Buffalo standards kind of shitty musicians, but they're steadily employed because there's so many gigs to fill. Now that's not true during COVID, of course, but that's kind of how it was right before it hit. And I had a lot of friends who were like just going that way just to get gigs all the time because they're not getting them here. A lot of them aren't.
Yeah, but then also it's hard to get anybody to show up unless you're a known traveling band. I mean,
Yeah,
our
until you
friend
put a
Jamie,
ban on it. I'm sorry, but until you put a ban on, and then everyone's like, "Oh, we must go out and support our music." Think about it, because literally, I dated a musician for 5 years, and I know you can't fill a room to save your life, but all of a sudden put a ban on it, and everyone's like, "But wait, I need to be out in the bars." Well, where the fuck were you? I'm sorry, but really, where were y'all this time? They weren't out there.
yeah, like Jamie's brother was saying, Jamie's a drummer we know, and his brother is a musician in New York City. And when Nick Angel's band went down to play, they're like, I was like, why are you coming to New York City to play?
Right.
You
I
know,
can see
and-
people saying that, but if they were here and they had the experience here, they'd know everyone's making what they were making 20 years ago. $300, you got 5 or 6 people in the band. It's not even worth bringing your gear to the freaking club for that money.
better off going to like all the state and universities throughout the state and make a tour of all the SUNY schools.
Seriously, I worked as a caregiver and I was an activities director, and I used to hire musicians and bands to come in and play for old people for 45 minutes for $300.
Oh,
I'm telling you, I tell my musician friends, dude, old people are cool. Like we had the guy that does the Elvis impersonation in Buffalo,
Terry.
Yeah,
Terry
Terry.
Buckwald.
Terry Buckley. Everyone's like, yeah, Terry.
Sorry.
The old lady holding their tops up in his thing. I'm not even kidding. We had to like put clothes back on the ladies during his thing, but we paid him $300 and it's like an hour-long gig. And we had the PA too, so they didn't even have to bring anything, and they do acoustic because they're old people. I'm telling you, it's the sweetest gig in town, and they need you. So check
And
out
it
your
makes sense
local
because even old people were probably
Gosh,
during the 60s. So
Gotta
they're
learn
all
some
ready to
standards.
rock and roll.
I
There
learned
you go.
standards. I probably have an old songbook, but there's a guy, his name is Saxman Slim, and he came to me and he was just getting started. This is back in like 2000. And I was like, dude, you don't play anything these people are going to know. And I gave him a book. He came back a month later. He had everything down. When my mom was sick, I saw him doing the rounds with his saxophone door to door in this nursing home. And I'm sure he was probably volunteering because he was just a good kid. You know what I mean? He liked the people, but
Yeah.
he was getting paid doing those gigs.
Maybe I'll just learn
Oh,
that
love
Careless
it.
Whisper sax solo and walk around from room
Right.
to room.
It was though, because it was like in a rehab wing, so I'd be a little sketchy with all these germs, but I mean, come on, an hour, $300. That's
Well, yeah,
not
that
bad.
brings those people to life too, because they're not, relating
love it.
anything spoken to them or anything, and they hear the music and it triggers part of their
They
brain.
love it, girl.
All of a sudden,
It's so
giant panties land on your face.
Richie, didn't you have a
Funny.
van come to see you at the up in Amherst at the forum? Didn't the van drive out there?
Who's that?
You, when you were living in the old apartment.
In New York City? I mean,
Oh, in Buffalo. Yeah, you played with Dots on Moon up at the forum, and the
Yeah.
van came.
oh, okay. Yeah. And so like I was living in this place while I looked to buy a house, and they were just building it, and they didn't have the sign up. And so the woman kept saying something about having people like, we can have a certain percentage of people under a certain age. So then when I went back to sign the lease, or had the lease signed, it's like whatever for the active 55 and over. Right? And I'm like, screw it. It's brand new. I move in, and these people were they were great. There was, I'd help somebody move I'd move their piece of furniture. And then like an hour later, I got a full meal like to my door. And so I played a show at this little place called the Forum, which is near Sweet Home High School, around Sweet Home. And they all got on the bus. They all got on the
Aw.
Silver Creek bus or River Creek bus or whatever it was called. And they all come out. There they all
Yeah, it was like
are.
8 or 9 of them. They came out for the show. It was cool.
They used to
Awesome.
stand outside my sliding glass door and just watch us practice. Me, Jamie, and
Oh,
the redheaded girl.
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, you guys,
Yeah, this is working out pretty good. Can everybody? How like technology wise? Can everybody see everybody? Does everything look pretty sharp? It looks sharp on my end.
awesome.
Yeah, I can see everything. I just want to tell you, if you did want the book, there's an MP3 at the library.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, I just looked it up and it says there's one available. So they must either you can download it maybe or something. It's probably a pain the first time.
No,
Yeah.
you-
Is there?
I appreciate that, and thank you too, Angel, because you had turned me on to a couple of possible sources for that. I've just been so busy, I haven't gotten around to it, but I will definitely get caught. It's good for me to get back into reading. I appreciate this opportunity.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And then we'll figure out the next
Keep this
book.
for the next meeting.
Yeah, we'll
It's a little
finish.
odd how it's written. It's hard for me to sometimes get into, like, because then I'm flipping back and forth and trying to look, who is this person and what's
You
this
have
line?
to.
Sometimes I think maybe I should just read it just for the value of reading it and being like, all right, not have to.
You'll get to know them after a while, though, if you keep flipping it.
Okay, I mean, I'm only 40,
Around page
40
400,
some
you'll know
pages
them.
in, so yeah.
Yeah, after
Oh,
It gets easier doing that.
yeah, you'll get used to it, Renee. Eventually, kind of all voices have their own like similar style of talking, so it kind of
Mhm.
makes sense after a while. You know.
Okay.
And then it's interesting just because then you find out like, oh, here's the guy from Vice, but it's not the asshole guy. It's,
Yeah, yeah.
whoever started the Proud Boys or whatever that guy is.
Oh
The
God.
other guy. And then if you Google them too, like seeing somebody's face or something kind of helps, or just because you realize like you're like, oh, DFA, are they going to mention that once? No, that record label and Plant are like the record labels that just made everything happen. So it is a pain. I almost was going to rip the first 3 pages out so I could keep it next to the book, but I understand what you're saying. It is a pain.
Yeah. Well, look for the next book. Let's pick one that we don't have to do with so many page flipping. I mean, we can pick let's look at some of the other books that are out there. Richie, you had a new book that you has got. Which one's that? That was the one about-
The drummer from New Order.
yeah.
It looks like he's got a second book. This one, unless you're a big New Order fan and a big fan of that drummer, I think the first half of it's just him going through his childhood. I mean, like, I don't even know, if you get up to Joy Division by the first half. So I don't know if that's really, it's nothing like reading Peter Hook's book where you can't put it
Right.
down and you want to read it over and over.
Have you read any books by other British musicians? Like, I mean, other even Peter Hook a little bit, but every British musician has like the same story as some like post-war apocalyptic growing up, like, where the Blitz happens and they like hid in bunkers until they were like, 12, and they played with like, bomb fragments and stuff. And it's kind of like that what do you call it? The old British comedy where they're like, oh, we were so poor. We had, every British story starts out. Did you read the Morrissey book? They were like, well, we were poor and Catholic and we grew up in this area. They were knocking down all the houses around my everything just sounds so horrendous and tragic,
Yeah.
You know, now that you mentioned that, there's a show on Netflix right now. It's a series called Call the Midwife, and it's
Right.
set in 1950s and 60s East End London. And there was a scene the other day where this one young kid asked his dad permission to go see the Rolling Stones, and his dad was like, "Oh, we're gonna have to talk about that. There might be some unsavory characters hanging around," and it was just sort of messed up though, because just to think of what was going on there. But the tone of it is like these people had just survived the bombing of their city, and a lot of their friends died.
Yeah,
Like the
yeah.
world got a lot better for them. A lot of shit happened that was good, but then there's like reminders everywhere of like, you know, this dude's wife died and this dude's girlfriend died and this, you know, like so many people were killed and so many things were ruined. And it's like we don't really live with that here because we've
Yeah.
never had a war that did that to
Yeah.
our country. So it's like a whole weird mindset for those dudes growing up in rubble. You know,
Yeah.
they're growing up in rubble and they keep it. It's still there.
They're wrong.
No,
Like the
as a
one
reminder.
guy that had money, kind of came from money of all of these people, was like Mick Jagger. Didn't
Yeah.
he?
Came from, he
Yeah,
came from
I
a
mean,
little
I
bit, yeah.
guess, but I mean, it's still like the decay is still around you,
Yeah.
even if you have
Oh, yeah.
money, you're still seeing this, and it's like pretty stark. You know, you go by a giant castle and it's in ruins, and you're like, shit. You know, that just it's a sobering experience. No matter how, you know, light you take life, it's just, you know,
Oh, yeah,
doesn't
definitely.
affect you.
And the people that came back here, don't they call it the silent generation? Because they just wouldn't talk about it. So
My dad never did. My
yeah,
dad
so,
never did.
so between the silence and not having any bombing,
Oh yeah, their PTSD must be through the roof. I mean, like the shell shock of coming back from Nam and hearing a gun go off and thinking back to that time. It's horrible.
Yep.
And think about all those young men now coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan and Somalia and wherever else they've been. You know, I heard like the gun range, because I live in Niagara Falls, so the gun range maybe about a week ago was super active about 9 o'clock at night. And I just happened to go outside, and it sort of scared me because I hadn't heard. I just moved here a couple months ago, and I hadn't really heard the range. And I'm outside pretty often at night, so. But yeah, like I think about like with all this tension and all these guys that have been through the service, and now everybody's like so, you know, at each other's throats. I think we really need a little a little pressure release. But yeah.
definitely.
Oh, yeah.
So the book club's a nice pressure release for me. I'll just stay inside.
There you go.
Avoid-
So let's think about our next book in the next meeting. We'll continue the discussion in the next meeting, and then we'll pick a book for the next couple of meetings there and stuff. And you know, the other ones that were kind of popular.
Yeah, by the way, I do enjoy, I know you and Rich are taking time to post things here and there, and that does give some insight. Like I wouldn't have thought to look up, was it Lizzie Borden and what she had to say about the book. You know, I just didn't think to YouTube it, so that was cool to watch.
Yeah.
I'll throw up stuff like that when I see it. That Lizzie Borden interview, I thought that interview was really good. She gave a lot of insight.
Yeah,
on
when she was in a bathroom
Course.
interviewing, like, oh,
in the bathroom. Yeah, yeah,
So you know, just funny things, but it was entertaining.
yeah. So, I mean, that adds to it. You know, I want us to have. You know, we have the internet now. We have a lot of things we can share and stuff. So I thought it was a good place for that. So yeah.
Yeah, if you can bring more people, please do.
Yeah. So the next meeting is, what's the date of it?
The next meeting will be, it is the 3rd, right? It is
Okay.
hold on, I'll tell you, double check. Go to the internet, interweb. Hold on. I believe I made it the December 3rd.
Third.
And it's also 7 p.m., I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's gonna be 7 p.m. on the 3rd.
Okay.
Okay.
Put that in here.
That's a Thursday, the 3rd. Yeah, so the plan, so Rich and I talked about this, and we're thinking about making it the first Thursday of the month moving forward. So it's nice and easy to remember. So the first Thursday of the month, unless it's some crazy holiday or something, or you know, something interrupts it. I think that's a good time, you know, and it's easy to remember. So first Thursday of the month. So this one will be December 3rd. The next one will be, I already put 3 events in the book group. So the next one will be, after that will be January 7th. And then after that, I have February 4th and March 4th. So just to kind of give it an idea. So we'll pick books for the next couple of meetings so we can kind of maybe get our books ahead of time. You know, so we'll chat online a little bit more about that. I know, like, I have that poll And two of the books that were popular, I have is Under the Big Black Sun, the story about X out in LA.
Okay.
John Doe, the bass player for X, and it's I've read one of his other books, and he's a pretty good writer. So there's not a lot of pretty short read too, and it's only one author, so you don't have to keep flipping and looking for who wrote it.
Yeah, who it is.
Yeah, right.
So that's this one about LA. Richie's got that one from Keith. You can hold it up next time and we'll figure out, maybe we'll read that one. And I found this one. And Spin the Spin or Rolling Stone just had an article about it, and it's Love Goes to Buildings on Fire, and it's about like the early 70s leading into the blackout and the Bronx being on fire, and how it led to punk rock and rap starting up.
Wow.
So it's written again. It's written by one author. It's not an oral history. So it has some stories about the New York Dolls. You know, it's got some dolls pictures there and stuff, and it also talks about all the different types of music that came out during that time period when the city was poor, and the blackout. Part of the blackout, and my grandfather lived up in the South Bronx and ran a TV repair shop, and all the stores up there got raided on the Grand Concourse, and all the stereo stores got raided and all that stuff. And after that, that's when the DJ culture broke out because everyone could grab two turntables.
Oh,
know?
Oh my God.
that'd be cool because it's got, like usually all that music's always been like separated. It'd be nice to
Right.
see,
Yeah.
it under one cover.
Yeah, Chuck Klosterman has a nice little write up in the back. I'll post a picture later and I'll send the link out. For the two books that seem to be popular. And then I don't know if anyone read this one, but this is on my list too. The Trouble Boys, The Replacements. So I started this one. It's pretty good too. So no ideas, but I'm open to anything.
Too.
Bad Religion just came out with a new book too.
Who did?
Bad Religion.
Oh, Bad Religion. Greg Geffen. Was that the Greg Geffen book?
Oh, no, Greg's got like 2 books out, but they're more science than music.
Okay.
They actually came out with a book of like from all of them. It's like the entire history of the band, like the 40 years they've been together.
Yes,
Okay.
I haven't seen them in like 30 years. Holy crap.
Yeah, they'll make up for missing them this summer. They were supposed to play with they were supposed to
yeah.
play it on the waterfront, right? Down at Riverside or Riverfront.
Alkaline Trio.
With Alkaline
And
Trio. Yeah, that's your other favorite, man. I know you love them guys.
Yeah. Very, very mad that they didn't happen.
Yeah. So hopefully they'll play this summer. We'll get prepped up for that. So anybody else got any ideas? Just toss them out. We'll talk some more online.
Cool, yeah, just post them. It's great that
Thanks,
you guys
Angel.
can make it.
Yeah, thank you all for joining. This is fun. This is a great kickoff. Great group, and I'm gonna post this later on the website too. I recorded this, and it'll be out there, and we'll just keep building on it. And great seeing you guys. Great, even though we're locked in and we can't go out now. The bars are closed. The restaurants are closed. The schools are closed. Everything's closed now. It's nice to be able to talk to people in real time and say hi. So thank you for that.
And it's nice to see my sister.
Hey.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
All right, everyone. Take care. Have a great
Okay.
night.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, nice
Bye,
to meet
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.